Hi, my name is Vance Powell. Welcome to Sputnik Sound, a part of the House of Blues complex here in Nashville, Tennessee.
And you remain alone and stay. Watch the world get some more. They need your love some more and more. People still struggle to get out of your stupid games.
You know, for me, what I'll do is I will look at the situation and I'll figure out what I don't want the microphone to hear and what I do want it to hear and choose the microphone appropriately. Ribbon mics for me are the most natural sounding microphones. Between the AEAs, Royers are great. All my old RCAs, you know, it's just my favorite sounding mic. Sometimes I'll choose one because it's not the best sounding mic. Sometimes you choose a microphone, be it a ribbon or a condenser or a dynamic, because you want it to impart a certain tone to the record. The reality is that we have an instrument in the human voice that's dynamic range is way bigger than I can even demonstrate, really, that we have to put out a hole about that big around. So it has to be compressed. It has to be pushed up. It has to be ridden. It has to be all of these things. So, you know, let's not fool ourselves. Let's not lie about it. Yeah, we want to get the greatest vocal sound ever. We want to get this fantastic vocalist's vocals. And then we want to put it on top of the mix. But yet it can't be too far on top of the mix. It has to be in the mix, but it has to be on top. Okay, well, the only way to do it is, you know, compression, de-essing, volume rise, gains, all that. Well, let's pick the best possible mic. Okay, well, oftentimes the best mic for it is actually the one that serves the end game instead of the beginning game, which is let's give her the best possible microphone. So sometimes you have to make those decisions. You have to be bold about them. Say, oh, let's not use a 47, or let's not use a C12, or let's not use a 251. Let's listen to a ribbon. Then let me add this compression and see if it fits in the mix. I'm kind of a creature of habit. I try my best not to use a lot of microphones on drums, but I really like using ribbons on toms and overhead. I like sometimes using a ribbon, a Coles out in front of the drums to kind of get that sort of out in front of the drum sort of sound, you know. But often, like when I'm working at Jack's, I don't even get two drum tracks. I mean, often I just get one. And so at one, it's usually a mono overhead, a kick drum mic, a snare mic, and then usually a pair of like R92s on the toms, or maybe 421s, or some dynamic, something like that. You know, the first Dead Weather record is 5 mics. Same, almost the same thing, except the tom mics were, I think, a 57 and an R92, or 57 and a Coles, with the R88 overhead. It's a stereo mic, but I combine it together to mono. So, and I love that. I love that mic, which amazingly enough, we have one right here. This is the new Mark II. Much better designed frame, but I just put it over the drums, kind of over the drummer's head. So I'll kind of put it like right here, and you know, somewhere like this. I kind of angle it a bit so it's kind of out into the room, and it ends up the dual figures of 8 ends up kind of being a sort of an overhead and a room mic all at the same time. It adds a nice sort of thing. But I've used it on a lot of things. I actually like doing. We did a song on this C6 Steve record with Steve and John Paul Jones playing. Steve's playing slide guitar, a dobro, sort of a resonator guitar, and John's playing mandolin. And they were just sitting on the couch in the living room, and I just used the R88 for the whole thing, just live, one take. And when you play it back, it's it's 2 tracks, but one has mostly the slide guitar, one's mostly the mandolin, and it just sounds like you're sitting in their living room. You can actually hear Steve's old time wind up clock in the room. And if I would have been really smart, I would have mic'd that and used it as the metronome, because it was actually just almost perfectly in time with the song. So, but I didn't. So I thought about it like after we recorded. I was like, dang, should use that as the metronome. But they wouldn't have played to it anyway, so it wouldn't have mattered. We have over at Third Man, we have an R88, and then I have an R88. We have a TRP, and I have a TRP. And then Jack has a pair of R92s, and I have a pair of R92s. Isn't it strange? He has almost exactly the same gear that I have. I'll bring my stuff over, and we'll augment, what's going on. I'll use the TRPs out on the floor for ribbon mics on the floor, and for quiet stuff, things that I want to send line level. I want to get nice and clean. On Blunderbuss, I use the TRP on a 44 on the upright bass, on Bryn Davies upright bass. I use the other side of it on a Coles for the fiddle. And then I think R88 for the overhead, and the 92s, but not into a TRP, I used for toms. So yeah, that was pretty much it. And then I'm pretty sure we use both sets of TRPs, but I sometimes I would, I'd have a thing where in this one little room we'd have a little quiet space for violin when we needed an acoustic violin, but we needed to record drums at the same time, that kind of thing. So that's kind of how I use the TRP, and then send line level back to Jack's Neve. So, but it's great. And now I have a couple of these, which are really cool. These 500 rack units, RPQ 500. And I really like them a lot. I use these mostly for overheads and for room mics on drums. I really like using Coles for overheads and the R88, obviously. But I've been using the R88 lately actually as a room mic out in front of the drums. It's something I kind of saw Chickarelli doing, and I thought I'd just steal it. And so I really like that a lot. That sounds really cool, depending on where you move it and where you put it in the right spot. It sounds really nice, but really nice.
And you